like I said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about tips and tricks for how to get started. This is more for, like I said, my seniors. They get to choose which way they get to do this. You guys are going to stick with the iPad. One of the things that I want to stress is that no templates are allowed. So the reason for that is because typically a template is very structured, very formatted, and it doesn't always fit every single kiddo. You're not going to fit inside this box that somebody else has created for you. And so then you go to change it, and then all of a sudden stuff starts flying all over the page, or you can't delete stuff, and it gets really awkward. So it's just best if you start from a clean page and you design it and figure out how to do it yourself. So it's mostly, anytime I've had kids do a template, they end up restarting and doing it from scratch anyway, so I'm trying to save you time in the long run with that. But the other side of that is you do get to learn how to manipulate and run Word a little bit more than you did before. And so I want you to be able to learn that process if you won't do that with a template. You can, however, I had some seniors ask me this last hour, if you kind of want to use a template to help you get started and come up with ideas of how to format, that's fine. But I would have that information kind of on one screen and then work with a blank document on another. Okay. All right, so how do we get started here? First thing you kind of want to think about is how to organize your information. So kind of think about those little dollhouse rooms as like different categories that you're putting your information in, and you want the stuff that belongs in that room to be in that room or in that category. So you kind of have to think about how, what do you have that you can fit in there? What best way does this all work together to create one whole piece? Okay? So that's just kind of an overall organization piece. If you guys have thought through that or done that with your pre-write, that kind of helps you out just a little bit more, and you're ready to get started here. So we use tables a lot when we're designing the resume in Word. It helps to make sure everything's lined up and that your information looks neat on the page. And so the best way that we found to do that is through these tables. So again, we're focusing on the iPad. So why don't you guys go ahead and pull up a Word document if you haven't done that already, so that you can kind of follow along with this and get some practice on how to do this before you actually get started. It should just be a blank document. For most of you, as sophomores, you're probably fine to keep the 1-inch margins that it automatically generates with your pages. If you are one that has a lot of stuff already that you've done though, you're involved with a lot, you do a lot of things, you could change your margins so that you have a 1/2 inch margin all the way around, and that gives you a little bit more room on the page. There's different ways you can manipulate that a little bit to give yourself more room if you need it. But like I said, for now, I just get started with what it gives you, and then we'll go from there. Okay? So if you guys have your Word document open, you're going to go to this Insert tab, and then you're going to find this Table button. And you go ahead and press it, and once you do, usually I have my iPad to do this. It should automatically generate a table for you, a 3x3. Okay? Now that might work well for what you're trying to do. You might like that 3x3 idea, or you might not. You might want more columns, you might want fewer columns, so you need to kind of play around with that and see. We're going to work with this 3x3 option that it gives us though. Sorry, I got to get through the online stuff. And we're going to create an example piece here. Okay, so in this table, I want you guys to follow along and do this. I'm going to zoom in on these pieces here in just a second. So if you can't read that, don't panic here. Okay, we're going to fill in our table. So this is the first column. We're going to label this category, you always want to make sure you have labels on a resume. You want your category to be clearly defined. So we're going to put education in this top one. Okay? Now, if you are somebody who has lived in Level and you've always gone to school at Level High School, this is where you might not need as many boxes. So you might be able to get rid of this bottom one and just put Level High School there. Okay? If you have transferred in from another school, you'll need to be able to put your other schools in there. Keep in mind, the rule of a resume, you always want to put your most recent information at the top and work your way backwards from there. Okay? You only put things from high school on this resume. You don't go back into your middle school years unless you've been a part of an organization maybe for that long. So let's say you're in 4-H and you've been in 4-H since you were 8 years old. You can go ahead and just put that starting date clear back there and say you've been a part of it until 2020. Okay? If that's not the case for you, just keep with your high school information. Okay, questions? Okay, so we're going to keep going. The next column, I decided to put, since I have 3 columns that I'm working with, the town and the state. You could go ahead and put the full address here if you really wanted to. Okay? And as high school seniors, I encourage them to do that. But for you guys this year, this is fine if that's what you want to do. Okay? Okay, and in the final column, I put the dates that I've attended those schools. So remember I had Level High School listed first. I've gone there from 2016 to 2018, or I could put 2018 to 2020. Maybe I've only attended it this year, so it would be 2020. You can go ahead and assume that you'll finish out the year here with 2021 if you want. Okay, and then same thing if you've got another high school, you'll want to put the dates that you attended there. Okay, questions about that? Okay, hopefully this helps fill out part of your resume, okay? And you've got your final piece there. Now, this is when you can start kind of manipulating the text and doing different things. Maybe I want this whole column to be bolded. Maybe I want education to be much bigger. So I can make my font sizes bigger. I can bold things. I can italicize things. I can put it in a different font. If that's what I want, you can mess around with color a little bit, but know that most people expect resumes to be black and white. They're not really looking for a very colorful, artistic one, unless maybe you're going into some kind of artistic career. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. Now, most of the time though, we do not like the way that the table looks. Okay? We don't want the lines there. We want to keep the formatting, and notice that now I've got bullets and I move things around a little bit to line it up and make it look better. I've put the stuff in the right-hand column, so it's aligned on the right-hand side, all those different things, okay? So after I've done all that, now I want to get rid of the lines on my table because I don't need them anymore. I use them as kind of a crutch to help me get things lined up, but now I don't want them. So, I'm going to do the iPad version here. We're going to make sure it's highlighted. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Does everybody know how to do that? You use the little box over there in the corner. I'll come up here so I'm on the video. This little button here in the corner, that's what you want to push, and that highlights the whole box for you. Anybody need help with that? Okay, so now what you're going to do is that should have opened up your table tab. If it didn't, so sorry. I'm going to move further this way and see if that happens again. Don't be scared, JJ. Ready? Never mind, we won't use that. Okay, so It should have opened up this table tab here. If it didn't, make sure you have that open. And then you're gonna go to Style Options. On Style Options, you might have different things check marked here. For now, we're going to get rid of all of those things. If you want to play around with those and look at what they do, that's fine, but you can do that later on your own. Okay? For now, just get rid of them all. Any other questions there? Okay. Then you're going to move over next to that, and you're going to go to, I think it's Table Styles. Yes. Okay? So it should say Table Styles, and then it should give you some different options here. The one we want is actually just a blank one. You could hit any of these blank ones over here. So go ahead and tap on those. And it should have gotten rid of all your lines, but kept your text. Is there anybody that didn't happen for? Awesome. Okay. So now, if you tap out of that stuff, this is what you should be left with, something similar to this. Okay? Where you should have the text, it's lined up, it looks neat. I've got my header and everything here, but you don't see the lines from the table. It looks much cleaner. Okay? Now, you can play around with those table styles. You are not forced to just do a blank one if you don't want to. So here are some different style options that you could look at. This one puts lines around your header and then at the bottom of the section. So that might be something to take a look at. I like the lines. I think they look really neat and keep your stuff organized. I think you can get too many lines going and that creates problems. But I know like when Miss AC was here, she hated lines. She'd much rather have a blank piece. So it just kind of depends on your style and what you like. This one is like minimal lines, just has one underneath your heading. So maybe that's kind of both, you know, the good things of both worlds. This one is a little bit more bold, and I'd be careful with this one not to create a whole document with these different tables with these bolded headlines, because that can look really boxy. And like I said, for me personally, I don't really like that. So this might be something if I'm really trying to highlight some specific information, like I want my education highlighted, or maybe later when you're a senior, this is for a sports scholarship, so you want your sports statistics to be really highlighted. I might put them in a box like this and then have a different format for the rest of my resume. This is dangerous, but you could technically do this so like your contact information is in the black and then do the rest of the resume and the rest of the table, or in a different way somehow. I'm not exactly sure how you do it, but you know, be careful with that. But you can play around with the format and the styles of your tables to help you and make it look nice and have a personalized touch to it. Another option that you should have to be able to add some more elements in is shapes. So if you go to Insert, go to that Insert tab, then you should have the shape option. Is that true? Yeah, good. Okay. So you can add lines, you can add rectangles, much like we did with our trading cards. Adding in those little stylistic effects can make a difference. Again, don't overdo it. It can create issues. So if you tap on a line, then you get something like this. The scary part with shapes that I want you to be aware of is that it's hard to get the shapes lined up. So if your stuff isn't aligned very well, you're going to get dinged for that. And you want to watch out for that. So keep that in mind. As you're aligning these shapes, they've got to line up with what you've already got. Okay, so here in a second I'm going to set you free to go get started with this. One thing I will say is make sure that you have a different, you should probably have a different table for each category. The reason for that is then you only have to go in and manipulate that one small table. Whereas if you make this one big table, then you end up getting tables within tables, and it creates a lot of issues formatting wise. So try and make sure that you are doing a different table for each category, not a different style necessarily. You want to keep your style fairly uniform throughout the resume, but you want a different table for each one so that it's easy to go in and manipulate that information. Okay, questions about that? Hopefully that helps you know kind of where you're going to get started. My suggestion is if you're like, I don't even know what to do, get on a page and start putting in your contact information. At this point, what you could do is just list all of your information on the page and then start formatting and figuring out where you want it and how you want it to look later. So if you're really scared about getting started, I would start putting things on the page that'll help you feel better. You've got stuff on there, and then all you've got to do is manipulate it and move it around. If you want to do your tables and kind of format it as you go, that's fine too, okay? It's just whatever you guys feel most comfortable with. Any questions? Okay, the rest of the time is yours to start working on this. I do have keyboards over here behind Robert, so as long as he isn't feeling like uncomfortable with having everybody bombard him here in just a second, you guys can come over and get keyboards if that helps you. We'll just need to make sure that we sanitize them after class or at the end of class. Okay, questions? All right, I'll be around. Ask questions if you need it. Go ahead and get started though. We'll see how far we get today. Sorry, I'm gonna shut this off.